Our special content. Are you ready for special content?
Uh-huh.
You won't even know that it's happening.
No,
so
I won't.
it's okay. It's happening. It's happening. Good. Well. Oh, I have to do all this stuff at once. Shit.
Yeah.
I'm not prepared. It's November 17th, 2016.
This is Idle Thumbs 289. I'm Chris Remo.
I'm Nick Breckon.
And I'm Jake Rodkin. Hey, guys.
Hey, Jake.
Hey, so I guess it's time to do a podcast on the internet.
It is, yes. So this is the first podcast we have ever live streamed while recording this. If you're hearing this on our RSS feed, which you most likely are, statistically, this episode was actually video broadcasted over twitch.tv/idlethumbs as we were recording it. This is a test run to see if it works. If you want to go back and watch that video, you can do so at twitch.tv/idlethumbs or hopefully soon at our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/idlevideos. And we're hoping to do this every week if it works out and is fun.
Yep. If you're one of the few dozen people watching this test episode live, you probably can't hear this because it already failed. So
It did?
No, I don't know.
Oh.
I have no idea if it did. Anyway,
Okay.
So what's going on the podcast this week?
Well, this week we are going to talk about Transport Fever.
Nice.
Transit?
Good. Off to a good start. Transport Fever.
Transport Fever, which Nick and I both played some of. Nick played an Earth Defense Force, which I didn't even know there was like a current one of those.
Oh, yeah.
So
It's not current, really. It's
Yeah.
a year old. But,
okay, all right. Well,
but,
that's interesting. This is going to be an esoteric Idle Thumbs
Oh,
relative. I also finished the Titanfall 2 campaign. I don't know how much more there is to say, but we can talk about that. And probably
In our recurring Titanfall spoilers segment.
yeah, and probably a fair amount of reader mail.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
How's it going, Jake? You haven't played any video games, have you?
No, I installed Dishonored 2, and then I looked at it, and then I didn't play it.
Oh,
so.
man. I played like an hour or two of Dishonored 2.
Oh.
Yeah, and I tried to play it, and I was incapable of playing it.
Oh.
I really liked the first Dishonored game, and I can tell this game is also really good, but my mental state recently has been such that Dishonored 2 is too much. It's too much. Dishonored too much.
More like
that.
More.
Yeah.
More like my Dishonored brain can't handle this shit right now.
Yeah.
Like I play. Actually, could you close that thing? I play Dishonored games with or anything like that, right? Like a Deus Ex, Dishonored. I try with Hitman, don't succeed as consistently to play as non-violently as possible.
Yeah.
Which sometimes you just straight up have to do something violent. Although I think Dishonored I think it's possible in the first game. I think it was to play without actually killing anyone.
It was.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
And that is how I played that game. I can't remember if I completely succeeded, but when you do that, it is a very high tension. Like everything is always on the knife's edge because as soon as you get noticed by someone, everything like turns into a
So inducing a
clusterfuck.
constantly anxious state is not helping when compounded with your current anxious state?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. It was really like surprisingly disastrous. Putting an hour or two into that game,
Yeah.
I became essentially a bundle of nerves and had to give up. The way I completed the first mission, I went through. You start off and you're at the beginning of the game. You're betrayed, unsurprisingly, and then you have to like escape from confinement and. You actually can choose whether to play as Corvo from the first game or his daughter, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I don't know if the premise changes based on that.
You can play as Dishonored or Dishonored 2, I guess.
Yes. But in any case, like I ultimately ended up completing the first mission by like carefully doing all the stuff. Like you can knock out a guy and hide him in a vault for maximum like non-violent like containment.
And you can pump all the air out of that vault for maximum violent, non-violent containment.
Right. And
He's fine though. There's probably enough air in there for him to last until he's rescued.
your character actually like explicitly makes a crack about how there's like bad food in there. I assume to indicate like he won't starve.
Right,
like, this
right,
is
right.
like it's really she goes out of her way. She's like, I hope you enjoy old fruit and dirty water or something.
Which still counts as sustenance to keep a human alive.
Because you do like straight up lock him in a vault in like a little room. Yeah, but the game is very clear.
I hope you like eating money.
That happens because there's like huge gold bars in there. It's a vault that actually is
you
full
bite
of
a gold
gold.
bar just to see if it's gold, not to like live off it. That's a misconception.
Ah, right. I just eat Toblerone. Actually, I don't anymore because they made it
they
smaller now.
changed it.
Fuck you, Toblerone.
Okay.
Have you seen
Said
that?
Corvo.
Are you not aware of this?
I know that there's
Okay.
small Toblerones.
Yeah.
Cadbury eggs, Toblerones. What's next?
Oh, Cadbury eggs also?
Oh, they're tiny
garbage
trash now.
Yeah.
Just
Oh,
trash.
really?
Yeah.
Hmm.
They were sold. That's why. They were sold to like Nestle. or
That's
something.
always just
Yeah.
what happens.
Yeah,
Yeah. Anyway, so after I like locked this guy in the Toblerone room or whatever, I was sneaking out and I was making my way and I was doing fine. And then you get out onto this city street and there's just tons of guys, like there's a million guys. And one of them saw me and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing here?" And I just completed the entire rest of the mission by just booking it through the streets as like every guy in town is like essentially joining a parade behind me. I'm like turning into the like grand marshal as I'm just like running through and everyone's like, "Hey, come back here, wait." And eventually I like jump onto a ship, which is the exit route, and there's like a captain of the ship sort of just like leaning against the door there, and she's just like, "Hey, need a trip or whatever." I don't remember what it is, but like meanwhile the entire town is running, but the cutscene doesn't like care.
Right.
Like
course.
it's just like, "Oh, it's fine now." So, which is a bummer because it would have been amazing if it had panned around and in the distance you just see the like marathon.
If the cutscene had kept all the NPCs running in it.
Yeah.
Always keep your NPCs running in your in-engine cutscenes, as all modern Ubisoft games have
Yes.
shown.
Oh, man,
like,
yeah.
make
Yes.
sure that there's a face exploding and a guy just leaping around in the background, or two people getting in a drunken fight. Like that's what you want. You want to escape on the ship and then have the huge Frankenstein pitchfork torch crowd.
Yep.
With the most nonchalant captain of all time.
Right.
Yeah.
But nope.
And then you stopped playing it.
Well, that was fine because it was hilarious.
Okay.
And then that was just like absurd. I mean, it was stressful, but in like a hilarious way.
Yeah.
But then I started the next level and I played it for a long time. I mean, like, I play these games painstakingly, typically. I mean, did not just describe that. But but the next, I was being really, 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 really careful the next level. And then I finally, oh God. And then one of the things that you can encounter, I can't remember if it's in the first or second mission, but like one of the things you can encounter is a room full of bloodflies or bone flies or something, which are just these like massive
one of those.
Yeah, just these like huge blood-sucking mosquito, like
flies,
6-inch mosquito things, and they're kind of like bees, I guess, in that they have hives,
it's like
like
Daikatana.
honeycomb hives, like meat bees.
Yeah.
And you can like, there are the dead people around who have clearly tried to go and clear out the bees. Or whatever,
bone flies.
bone flies,
the
bone
blood
bees,
flies.
and it was so stressful because it's like if you go slowly enough and don't fuck with them, they won't necessarily attack you, but you have to just like walk through these clouds of just buzzing, gross looking fucking blood bees.
This is an analogy for how neither of us have Twitter on our phones anymore.
That's true. All three of us, in fact.
Oh, good.
No longer have Twitter on our phones, which is such a relief. But it's it was horrifying. And then you can sort of clear out local areas of like bone flies by smashing their hives with your sword or with your knife or whatever. But it was just like my heart rate basically doubled the entire time I was in there. And it was an optional thing, but I couldn't stop myself from. It was like, oh, there's content here. Like there's an optional thing that I.
When
can...
someone asks you to clear out the bloodflies, maybe say no though, Chris.
They didn't even ask me.
Okay.
I got there and there was like a note. There was like a note pinned to a dead guy.
Oh,
Yeah,
an
right.
environmental story. An environmental story.
A
asked you.
story was environmentally told to me about a man who attempted to destroy the bloodflies and
it
failed.
said, "This will be you
Yeah.
if you attempt this." And you went, "Well,
All right.
Maybe it won't be though.
maybe it won't be." Ron Howard voice says it was.
I mean, I did ultimately succeed, but I was left with just completely frayed
But at what
nerves.
cost?
Yeah,
At what
high
cost?
Yeah.
And so then I just kept going through the rest of the level, and
I keep waiting for the point where you're like, and then it was too much, and I stopped. And it's a lot
Well,
more than I thought.
Yeah, no, I know. And there was yet another optional thing that I found, which is like, oh, you can get help to achieve your main objective if you like steal a corpse for this lady. And so I was like sneaking up to the 3rd or 4th floor of a building, sneaking past all these guards who are having all their conversations in the side rooms, and then eventually I get where I'm going, and I like open the door to the room where the corpse is, and there's just a fucking guy there, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And he just stabs me in the chest, and I die, and it just like, all of my nerves had been just stretched to the like breaking point, and then this guy just goes blah and stabs me, and it does the thing where the screen desaturates and you like fall over, and it's
Right.
intended to really make
Dishonored fades up on screen.
yeah, you've been dishonored, it says in that classic parlance. And I basically just had a nervous breakdown, and I Alt F4'd, and that was that. And I haven't played it since then. It was too much. So
you changed your tune
I did. I mean, I guess.
to a
what was my
transport
tune?
simulation game.
Oh, that's true.
But I don't know if we want to talk about Nick's.
Yeah, Nick felt that he needed to defend Earth.
Yeah,
This
I don't know why I
way.
went in the exact opposite direction of a game that is just nonstop shooting and people screaming on the streets, running around, talking about the end of the world. I don't know why my brain said that was the thing I needed.
It's weird. Why was that on your mind this week?
It was something that I don't even know why. I think I just noticed it on the Steam front page at some point.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, there's an Earth Defense Force game.
No topical reason. It was
PC.
in fact.
Well, no, 'cause
it
I-
was the community update V2
Right.
that put it
Very
on your
topical.
mind.
Very topical.
Yeah. No, but I didn't. I'd installed it, and it was just sitting in my library. And Janelle and I last night were just like, God, I just want to like play a game and like turn off my brain for an hour. And
Was it
then I
co-op?
realized like, oh, this thing probably has like split screen co-op, and it does. It's like if you haven't played like an Earth Defense Force game, have you
I
guys
have
played?
not. No.
Chris,
I
did you?
I
at some
played
point or other? Yeah.
there was one that came out in like I want to say 2010 or so, and sort of was maybe a little
Okay.
2009 maybe,
Yeah.
and was kind of a phenomenon. Like that series has been around for a while, but I remember some publisher brought one
The
to
Xbox
the United
360
States,
version
and it
took off
made
for a second,
a bigger
yeah.
splash than that series had made in the West.
Yeah, it's a weird.
D3 published it.
Yeah. They're made. I didn't realize they're made by a developer called Sandlot, and it's Japanese
that,
Japanese
yeah.
developer, and which I only mentioned because I looked up their history, and the first game that they ever made was for PlayStation 1, and it was called Remote Control Dandy, which is an excellent name.
Oh, that's very good.
For your first game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wow.
Remote Control Dandy. No information on Remote Control Dandy, but I really want to go back and play that. In any case, but yeah, Earth Defense Force it's weird. Even in the time in which like the first game was released, it felt like a throwback to an earlier era where all you had to do was just have split screen co-op and you shoot some aliens, and that's kind of the whole game. Like it felt like something derived from like an NES co-op game.
Is it like
where
an
you-
over-the-shoulder third-person thing, or how does
yeah,
it, how
it's
does it
an
work?
over-the-shoulder third-person game where you're just running around in a city, and
Oh man! By the way, the one that came out that I remember everyone talking about was even longer ago than I thought. Earth Defense Force 2017,
Yes.
released in North America and Europe in 2007.
yeah, I played this game in college. That game.
So this game was released 10 years before the events of the game.
Yes.
Next year, we will
Defender.
experience
Hopefully not,
these events.
because this game is. I mean, they're meant to be over the top and ridiculous, but they exceed your expectations wildly.
Right.
I mean, so the very first level. I mean, the joke. The best punchline they have is at the very first level, you load it up and immediately you're just this little tiny guy in a city, and there are giant ants, like thousands of giant ants just running at you. Like the second you load the game up, that's what faces you. It's just madness from the first minute, and it just basically increases from there. I mean, I don't know how much I have to say. I mean, actually, I have a couple things to say about it. It does some stuff that's actually like, it plays with scale in a way that games just don't. It just becomes a ridiculous thing where, like, I don't know, if you're messing around in like a game editor or something, or just making like a game jam game, you might do some of this stuff, but you would never actually ship the kind of content that they're shipping.
Where you take an NPC and make it 20 times bigger than it should be, then watch it stomp around and look at how hilarious it is.
Yeah, and then maybe just spawn that NPC like 100 times in the air, and then just there are 100 spawning ants that are just falling out of the sky, and then, like, because you've just auto-generated nav mesh on everything, they're just crawling on trees, but they're enormous, so they're just, like, attaching themselves weirdly at different angles, and, like, it's just fucking crazy.
Whenever I see or hear stuff from this series, it always feels like when you're like learning a level design tool set, and you're like, I can just put a spawner in the sky, like I can put a trigger right here, and it'll make everything turn green.
A gun that shoots enemies.
Yep.
Or when people somehow do weird exploits in NFL or NBA games, and somehow their team has a player who's 30 feet tall but obeys all of the rest of the rules of the game.
Yeah. Or just like weird GTA mods. Like you'll see like GTA 5 GIFs like occasionally where like somebody's like shooting cars out of a gun, and like that's basically what this game feels like all the time.
I remember, was it Pandemic who made Mercenaries?
Yes.
Okay. That was published by LucasArts, and I remember covering it at E3.
That was a pretty fun game, I recall.
Whatever year it was that was at E3. That was the first time that I had ever seen that stuff.
2006 or something? Maybe earlier even.
It might have been a little earlier. It was like when GTA 3 era vehicle physics were still a novelty, and I remember even at E3 they were demoing how proud they were of that engine, and they had the debug mode up, and the guy on his Xbox controller typed in a command that just let him spawn Humvees from the earth or from the sky.
2005.
Yeah, and I remember looking at that and just going, "Oh, the future of games is going to be good."
Yep.
And no one actually makes a game where that's the case. I wished that Mercenaries had just been that. Like, it was already an attempt at over the top whatever, but like. So Earth Defense Force apparently.
Oh yeah, no, it has the same
thing. This is Earth Defense Force 4.1.
Yeah, no,
which is apparently itself a port of an entirely differently named game that came out 2 years earlier.
Oh man,
and was updated for like
it's
the
also,
current generation of
It's
systems.
also, I will say, an atrocious port, but in kind of a good way. like the first second you load this thing up, it's incomprehensible. The menu system is just baffling. For instance, you connect two controllers, you get to the main menu screen. You assume, because you have the second controller plugged in, that it's just going to know that. But then you have to hit start on the second controller to enable the second controller in terms of the game understanding that it exists. And then when you're in menus and you say, like, so the part of the way this game works is between missions you have like loadouts and different things you can, like, you know, upgrade and all that garbage. When the second player goes into their menu, it locks the first player's controls off, and vice versa. So, like, half the time you don't even know who's controlling the stupid game. They don't even have an exit button on the menu. I couldn't figure out how to quit this thing. It was ridiculous. Anyway, it's hilariously bad and good in all ways. There's
probably no exit button because it's from a console.
Right? Yeah, they just didn't do any of it. It's hilarious. I had some funny moments. So there are always missions in these games where you go underground, which is just a terrible idea based on the way this game works. Because
so you should actually, we haven't done this yet. You should describe this is a third person.
It's an over-the-shoulder third person shooter.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah. We briefly talked about it. I mean, it's mission based. You load into a mission. You're in a giant city. All the buildings are destructible. A billion things spawn, and you shoot them, and that's it. That's the whole game. There's no nuance. You have little, like, friendly NPCs that run around next to you saying insane things.
It's like an even more simplified and ridiculous Dynasty Warriors or something.
Actually, you know what? Yeah, I've never really played those games, but I know exactly.
I had friends in high school who were obsessed with Dynasty Warriors. Who they would just like sit on the couch in a friend's garage and just murder people forever in Dynasty Warriors.
It's basically that, but you're murdering giant insects.
Right.
They always say giant insects too. The guys that are with you, they never just say insects,
Aliens
as if there are other.
bugs or
They're like, we gotta
something.
kill
Yeah.
these giant insects. It's like they're all giant.
Sir, these insects are too large.
Yeah.
They must be destroyed.
There's one guy on my team.
These
who's
giant insects are too large.
There's this one guy who is. They must have planned this because a lot of this dialogue is just bad in the way that like it's just poorly translated or just goofy and not good. But like, there's this one guy who clearly is some kind of in joke because he's just always hungry. Like every mission, you're just shooting guys for like an hour, and then in between he'll just be like, "I could really go for a juicy steak," and then the next level he's like, "I'm really hungry," and it's just
It's
there's
his
this
thing.
weird
He's
story
just a
that's
hungry guy.
Yeah, he's just like the Aliens character.
That's called
just his.
yeah.
It's
That's
his
called
goofy...
characters.
Oh,
having
sorry.
Characterization,
God, speaking of aliens, so
storytelling.
we had this mission where you go underground in these tunnels, and because of the nav mesh insanity and just the way that like your guys, like your friendly guys, are always shooting at enemies, but they don't know what's in front of them. Actually, like they don't understand level geometry. So if there's an enemy that's like on another side of a wall, they'll just start shooting the wall. Like it's a disaster of game design in these tunnels. But so, and you can't see, and like there's one class of guy that you can be that has a flashlight that's really good. But then if you're not that guy, you have to like shoot your gun all the time. Otherwise you can't see. It's madness. But so like we're in this tunnel, and we had this amazing moment where when you're playing this game, you always have sort of like a circular radar with sort of dots that show you all the enemies and all the,
Classic radar.
classic radar from that era of games. And so we're wandering around in these tunnels, and we must have, there was some objective, like go down and kill the queen or whatever the hell. And we're just wandering around, and we can't find anything. And like, our guys are just kind of like getting confused, and so all our friendly dudes are just sort of back at the start of the level, and we were just like 10 minutes of just like wandering through these stupid tunnels, not finding anything. And then we realized like we looked at the minimap, and there are like 1,000 red dots right on top of us. And then we just looked up, and they were all on the ceiling, and it was just the fucking scene from Aliens, where we were like, "Oh shit!" and just like started shooting, and everything went to hell. Like it was crazy.
Did one of you scream "light 'em up" or anything like that?
yeah, stay frosty.
I could use a steak right now.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's pretty much what happened. Anyway, there's not much to say about this game except that it's hilarious.
So it sounds like a strong recommend, though.
If it sounds like
Rent it.
Yeah, rent it from Blockbuster. Pretty much, yeah. It does as a PC port. It actually is. It's functional. It's just you have to kind of learn.
So you'd say
learn
like
its quirks.
locked 60 FPS.
We were playing it in 4K, and it did run smoothly. I was surprised.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, I think
So,
those games
the
were
future is here.
often like that was a thing, right? That they could push just crazy number of enemies. But they
It
were-
actually is impressive.
Yeah.
Like at one point, the screen was just full of polygons, and it wasn't slowing down. And I was like, I don't know how they're doing this. Actually, this is
The trailer
ridiculous.
for this quote unquote, the screen was full of polygons.
Yeah. Anyway, it's a mess. But
what was I going to say? Those games are so interesting because they represent a category of thing that not only doesn't exist in games anymore, but kind of doesn't exist in entertainment at all, which is just like big ridiculous B game. Like B, I mean, that's not really been a term, but like the
Yeah.
game equivalent of a B movie. Like you just don't Hollywood doesn't produce those anymore. Period.
Right.
Like you can have
think that they-
you can have stuff that's trash, but it's not produced in the way a B movie was, which was like in just an obviously cheap manner.
I think
Right.
some of it probably still does, and you just don't watch. Like, I think it's just less and less. You're right. Sorry. Step
not-
one,
it's not-
less of it is surely made, but probably more important than that is less of it is visible because there aren't B movie theaters, and then the replacement
Right.
for those was the DVD and home video market, which also died.
I think the Sci-Fi Channel probably at this point
but
is where you.
Sci-Fi Channel stuff's more ironic. I
Yeah.
feel like there
That's
probably
true.
still is schlocky shit
It's
made,
not
but it's
honest.
just sold in bulk to be the undercurrent of streaming networks. But even that is a way reduced market to
Yeah.
what it used to be. I
Yeah.
think that the
Yeah.
sort of B genre mill is way reduced, but it lasted longer than I think a lot of people think because people just didn't look at shitty DVDs.
Right. That's true. That's a good point.
But
and yeah, that's
even
true.
that
It probably
seems like it's dried up a lot
no,
more
I-
than it used to be.
I think you're right on both counts. And then
Yeah.
in games, that's always been a tougher affair because a game that is more cheaply made is often just buggy and not like there's a
Yeah.
you can get it doesn't really matter.
You
in
can't
movie
be a
if it-
connoisseur of shitty video games the same
it's-
way.
I mean, I know some people who kind of are and like profess to be, but the
harder.
potential appeal is so much lower because it's, for one thing, really well-made games already have like poorly written dialogue and stupid shit in them that is like would typically
I'm a
like
connoisseur of trash art. Oh, I like video games.
yeah. I just mean like
Wow. No, it's fair.
I'm just saying
it's fine.
For one
we
thing,
all know.
like, but then also like if a game is shoddy, it's like, oh, you just can't really play it very well. Like it's not the same as a movie being kind of charmingly.
Well, like being a judge of the Independent Games Festival is a super different experience than being a judge of an independent film festival.
Yes, for sure.
Because I mean, we've talked about this before, I think a little bit, but like I think it's pretty rare that someone, when they roll up a last-minute entry to an independent film festival, just dumps reels of unspooled film in a cardboard box on someone's desk. It's like, I know it is film. If you put it through a projector, it'll play, and then you can watch my movie. Like no one does that.
Right.
Whereas the IGF, it's like, it's a video game. Sorry, you're gonna have to copy it to a jailbroken iPhone. At best.
And like tons of stuff is missing.
Yeah.
And, like, all fix all like.
Don't
keep
turn left
working on
here.
it.
You're gonna literally fall out of the world because it's
yeah.
just the demo.
Yeah.
Like
yeah, games are just weird and different.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the Earth Defense Force series always struck me as a weird example of
Like
just
successful actual B game.
Yeah.
No, it's true.
Like giant B game. Sorry.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, I didn't play
Full
Earth
of
Defense
bugs.
Force because I had enough.
Oh God.
like, B game this
It's a
week.
B game. It's full of bugs. Blah.
Blood bees.
But not how you think. It's full of bone bees.
Probably is.
But that is cool. I kind of want to play this now.
Yeah, I mean, it might trigger anxiety in some ways. So maybe hold off for a week. But it
Well, you know what's funny is that Hitman didn't, and right, like the reason I say that is because Hitman is one of the closer examples to something like Dishonored, and I think like Hitman takes place in, even though it's ridiculous, it takes place in the real world, whereas Dishonored takes place in this like super intense, like everyone's like, and you know that doesn't make any sense in audio, but like
Hitman's like, blah, blah. It's like when Arnold Schwarzenegger's eyes start bulging out at the beginning of Total Recall. That's the calming effect.
Yeah.
I mean, like in Dishonored, everyone's hands are like enormous, and everyone has this. Everyone's stylized in a way that makes everything sort of brutal and like high contrast and intense. Hitman is just like, oh, it's just sort of a nicely rendered house or like hospital or
you
something.
enjoy the sterile precision
It's so-
of the
I mean,
murder.
even when
No, Dishonored
Not
is,
my,
Dishonored is built to
type
be
of
sort of
murder.
like like weirdly brutal and oppressive. Like it's just, it's
because the world is
Oh
supposed
yeah, you're
to be
living
this,
in a
like,
shitty
there are
world.
rats there.
Yeah, there are definitely
That's
rats there.
That's probably the difference.
And then also the failure states in Hitman are kind of, generally speaking, quicker to collapse and more hilarious.
Right.
It
Whereas
could
Dishonored is
basically
very-
have
yeah.
like a wacky ragtime piano from what was that? Goddamn, what was that heist game? The top-down heist game that had wacky ragtime piano all over
Monaco.
it? Yeah.
Monaco.
Yeah.
Hitman would never actually have that, but
it could.
if it did, it would be a slightly different game. But your
Yeah.
mental image of a Hitman failure is allowed to be like it's a wacky near miss. Like it just
Right. Whereas Dishonored is a game that is like does not require you to, but is designed to allow the possibility that you are just like a crazy teleporting murder master who can just like run up walls and do it. So the fact that the game has to have that as a possibility means everything in it is like constructed in such a way that the player who does that is going to have a fun, satisfying, like complete experience. But if you're not the player who does that, it means that there's also the possibility that you will just get wrecked in a way that is way more brutal than the like kind of ridiculous ways you get wrecked in Hitman. And ridiculous stuff can happen in Dishonored 2. And also none of this, by the way, is a knock on Dishonored 2 at all. It's just I could deal with one and I could not deal with the other this week.
Oh, we should have a quick Hitman aside. I feel like we're coming up on break time, but we talked about the final Hitman mission last week, but we didn't talk about the fact that Steve Gaynor is inside of Hitman.
Oh, that's true.
Oh my god.
I feel like that's worth. Did either of you guys encounter Steve when you were playing?
No, I don't think
Oh,
I did,
okay.
no.
Well, yeah, I haven't played it yet, so I wouldn't know. But I thought one
like
of you
a-
guys would have found. He's like a
he's
push-up
like lifting
maniac or
weights or
something.
something
Yeah,
in it,
there's like a total.
Did you see the video of that?
Well, they were talking about him, right? I mean, I saw the video.
Oh, that's right.
It's some guy
not
who's just
actually
like
in
Steve
it.
Gaynor.
Oh,
Where's
just like
where's
I
cool
thought
suits?
that Steve Gaynor was an NPC inside of it, and someone had made a user-made target Steve Gaynor mission, but maybe I imagined that.
Oh,
as,
maybe.
that's
Yeah,
just
no,
my
no.
dream for what that is. Because there are NPCs that talk about Steve Gaynor all the time in the new Hitman level.
Oh, I don't know.
maybe,
Yeah,
I don't know.
Who knows if he's in it or
I
not.
only saw the thing where they talk about him, which neither proves nor disproves
Yeah.
the
The
existence
presence-
of the NPC
the-
himself.
Right.
Yeah.
Which neither proves nor disproves the existence of Steve Gaynor.
Yeah, no, that was amazing. Good job.
If Steve Gaynor is in the Hitman universe, then that means that the development of the video game Gone Home exists in the canon of the Hitman universe, even though the events of it do not.
That's true.
Also, the development...
Gone Home doesn't take place... Gone Home and Hitman don't share a universe, but Hitman and the Fulbright Company do share a universe.
Yes. In the world of Hitman, someone worked on some Fear expansion packs.
Right.
And worked on BioShock Infinite for a while, and then moved to Portland and started a video game company.
Right.
But that's...
I guess that means we're all in...
that world.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
It means that in that universe, at least... Oh, we
it
should
depends. If you're
extrapolate it
saying BioShock Infinite exists in...
I'm saying if Steve Gaynor's life exists, but maybe in that world, there was
there's like a bubble. There's like...
some kind of we could be a composite character that is just a kind of like
right,
wacky podcast shithead that also made video games. We might our likeness may not.
Are
have been,
we that then in reality? If we're saying that Steve's actual reality shares a universe with...
Well, Steve's not a big muscle dude, so they took some liberties, in the adaptation.
That's true.
But I think it's safe to assume that Gone Home exists.
Or this version did. The reality that we're in is an inaccurate representation of the real Steve Gaynor, who is in fact a muscle-bound.
Living in a simulation.
Weird Silicon Valley bro.
Of course, Steve Gaynor would be the only one living in a simulation.
We're all just living in Steve's simulation.
That's true.
We're all environmental storytelling.
So Steve being inside of Hitman is like a little wacky wink by the developers of this simulation to the fact that that's what it is.
Yes,
and that's why Hitman's so comforting to you, Chris. we're all just whatever.
Steve
is just all
you recognize.
I can really relate to this living, breathing NPC man. Or PC man.
The way the behavior in this works just feels so comfortable and familiar to me.
So then why does Dishonored not? I guess that's the Dishonored simulation.
That's very clear. Yeah.
Should we take a break?
Yes.
Yeah, let's take a break.
Okay.
Cool. How do we take a break?
Video games.
How do we do that?
This episode of Idle Thumbs is brought to you by Movement. Movement manufactures affordable and stylish watches and sends them to your home. You can buy them on the internet at mvmtwatches.com/thumbs. Jake, you are as I've said, a known watch wearer.
I am.
You've now been wearing a Movement watch for what, like a month or two at this point?
Yeah,
probably
I have.
over that. I would say at least 2 months at this point.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. How are you liking it?
I like it a lot. I mean, it's my daily watch. I don't know. They're very well made. They're really nice. I'm a person who doesn't like a super ostentatious watch.
Sure, yeah.
The watches from Movement, they sell them in a bunch of different styles, but I've found that they're all actually pretty classy.
Yeah, after you started wearing one, I went to the website and was looking around, and I was actually like,
they hit the good point of like understated and clean, but not cheap.
Right.
They're deliberate and not simple in their look.
And they have a very slim profile, which I think is cool.
Yeah.
So if you go to mvmtwatches.com/thumbs, you can get 15% off with free shipping and free returns if need be.
Sweet.
Yeah. Jake, you have not returned your watch.
I've not. I've kept it.
You've kept it. If you go to mvmtwatches.com/thumbs, you can get that deal. They got a bunch of stuff there. I almost bought one recently, and I may still. The longer you wear yours, the more I will.
Oh, good.
Suffer from watch envy, and
well, you get a good deal on a nice watch.
I know
you could do it.
I could, and I may.
Good.
That is mvmtwatches.com/thumbs.
Nice.
Thanks, Movement. This episode of Idle Thumbs is also brought to you by Indochino. Indochino manufactures made-to-order suits and shirts and slacks and whatever else, all the menswear you need to look really nice. You will get it sent to your house according to measurements that you can take or have a tailor take. Or if you live near an Indochino store, you can go in and they will do all their measurements for you. But if you don't, they have instructions on their website for how to measure yourself. It is a really cool thing. Jake and I went into the Indochino store here in San Francisco, had ourselves measured for shirts. We got those shirts. Jake's fit him perfectly right off the bat.
Yep.
Mine needed some adjustment.
You know how it is.
You do know how it is. They will actually reimburse you the cost of tailoring if you have to have minor alterations made after the shirt comes in, which
wow.
which is really cool. I learned that recently. And if you live close to an Indochino store, they will alternatively just do the tailoring for you themselves, which is really awesome. So
nice.
so you can get the whole thing start to finish without worrying about little, if you sort of have a minor adjustment that you didn't pick up in the measuring. And I had my shirt tailored, and it is, I think, the first time in my life I've had a men's dress shirt that actually feels like it fits me.
That's awesome.
It's really weird. Yeah, I've never had that experience before, and it is really cool.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm really happy about it. And now,
was your tailor impressed with your FNB monogram?
Well, it was the Indochino.
Oh, they were probably impressed. Everybody looked at it and went, yeah, totally true.
That guy. So, yeah, if you go to Indochino.com and then enter the code IDLE at checkout, you can get any premium Indochino suit. That is their nicest line of suits for just $389. That is 50% off the normal price and free shipping. That is Indochino.com with the offer code IDLE at checkout. Again, if you have an Indochino store near you, you can get tailored or measured in the store. And if not, you just do it with a little tape measure yourself, and they tell you how.
Man, if you engage in both sponsors this week, you will be a classy fucker.
That's true.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you could be a very
just a well-dressed individual.
Yeah, well turned out
Yep.
individual. Yes.
It's all true.
All right. Are we back?
I don't know. Couldn't say.
You couldn't say? You're the only one who knows.
We're back. We did it. We're back.
Okay, we're back. So Transport Fever. This was a game that this game is European as hell.
How did you get recommended? I mean, why did you start playing this game?
I'm trying to
How
think.
did you get the Transport Fever?
How did you catch the fever?
Through two vectors. Someone on Twitter, after we talked about MiniMetro a bunch, someone on Twitter replied to me and said, "Hey, Chris, this game Transport Fever just came out. Like, it seems like it's up your alley." At the time he tweeted that, it wasn't actually out. I wonder if it came
wasn't
out.
actually up your alley, is what I thought you were going to say.
Yeah, I know.
It might have been out in Europe or something and not here yet. I don't know. But in any case, I looked at it and I'm like, oh, that seems cool. Forgot about it because I couldn't actually play it yet. Checked back a week later because at Campo, Jane, with whom I share an appreciation for fiddly economic and builder management games. Like, Jane's she plays the Anno games, and she plays other games in that series that, like, Nick and I talk about a lot. And she independently brought up Transit Fever because she had played, I guess, previous games in the series. And so this is a...
Are the previous games Transit something else or something else Fever?
I think there's something else Fever.
Okay.
Yeah.
Transport, right?
Transport.
Yeah.
And
the other one was Transit Fever, was the predecessor.
So this is a game that, as far as I can tell, Nick, tell me, you actually are, given what you've played of the game, you're in a better position to answer this than I am. As far as I can tell, this is a game in which you don't actually do any of the city building yourself. You just build the transit lines.
You can destroy the city by right of way, right? Like
right.
You can just say, I need this.
So you can eminent domain.
This field doesn't exist anymore. Like, you basically, just by creating transit networks, you can destroy America. But also,
so is it running a full city sim, like a lightweight city sim underneath?
Yeah,
because the city continues to grow and you have to respond.
Yeah, all individual agents are represented. Like, people walk around, cars drive around. They all have destinations.
But the focus is
homes.
entirely on, like, road and rail or something?
Yeah.
Or
road, rail, boat, plane.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah, I haven't gotten far enough. The funny thing about it is that it starts in, like, the 1800s, I believe. 1850. Yeah, I think. Did you start in the United States or in Europe?
I've done both at this point.
Okay, I started in...
you started the campaign, basically.
Yes.
I skipped that to just go to free play, basically.
Right,
okay.
okay.
Sort of like...
Well, the reason I say that is because it starts in the campaign starts in a different year, depending whether it's North America. So I assume it does in free play as well.
I don't think so, but maybe.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. But a funny thing about it is that, like, I mean, so the game is much, as is the case often with the European versions of these games as compared to, like, the American version, right? Like the SimCity or your Civilization, those tend to be a lot coarser and kind of more balanced. This game is just like, oh, it's 1850, so these are like the 4 wacky locomotives you have access to,
right.
And they just do not seem like game balance and does not seem like the
no.
thing. It's
No,
just
no,
like
no.
this is just
Well-
what this one was. It weighed this much, and
Yeah.
like it.
Oh
you know,
man, hilariously, when you start out in free play, you start with $3 million, which you're like, oh my god! Like if this was like a SimCity game, that would be like end game
Oh, yeah.
money, end game achievement, and you can blow that in about 5
a
seconds.
locomotive can cost like $200,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even an early
I
locomotive.
dropped
some
2
of them.
stations and connected them, and I was out of money. And I had
Oh,
one
yeah.
shitty train, and
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, okay, I guess
Yeah.
I'm starting over."
Yep, yep.
Like,
Yeah, you
I
have to-
fucked up 1850.
This game, when you lay track,
Yeah.
like if you, depending on how much curvature there is,
Yeah.
and if the grade, if the incline
Oh, man.
changes,
The construction
it costs way more.
cost.
Yes,
Yeah, is-
man. Okay.
Because it includes,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
assume, both the like the track itself, and then also the cost to like clear to like
Yes.
do the essentially
Just terrain movement,
terrain,
earthworks.
like
Yeah.
yeah, right. It's intense. It is, but it's also because that's the only thing you're doing.
Right.
It's okay. Like that's just eating up all the other
Yeah.
attention you would be paying to zoning and city blocks and all that other stuff. So it doesn't actually feel like
No, that's cool.
it doesn't to me feel overburdened. It's just
No.
also the interface is bad. Like it's
Yeah.
also just again like one of these just super Eurosim
It's
games
just like hard to read.
with just super fiddly, lots of tiny little buttons,
Yeah.
and like I'm running my display at just native 4K,
Mm.
and so all the UI doesn't scale, of course.
There's
and
no
so,
high DPI
no. So
transport
I just
fever?
have all these
No.
tiny little. It's got like Windows style UI where you can just drag
Yeah.
all of your little pop-up windows around, but every
Oh.
time you click on anything, it opens up its own. Like even just a little guy walking around will open up his own like Citizen 1328 little draggable window that'll just stay there until you
Oh,
dismiss it.
man.
So
Oh man.
it becomes crazy.
Yeah.
But I like it. I like it a lot.
It's built on the actual software that the transportation department of a major city would use.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. It's very authentic. So I have a question for you, Nick. When you play the unguided free play, does the city build itself? Like what happens?
I hate to say it, but I've yet to really progress far enough to notice. It must. The way
Yeah.
the way that it spawns.
Yeah, there's no tools for any of that stuff.
It's got to.
It seems like
Yeah.
the whole,
And it's
the whole
gotta-
thing is that the city would have to continue to build on its own, and your job is to
Yeah, no,
respond,
I think
right?
I think maybe it's
I've just
also,
never played a game like that.
Yeah.
Well, I think also I think it's that you're improving the city by creating these networks, and I suspect that the city building
It'll sort of like flower stuff off of the infrastructure you build. Do you think?
No,
Or-
no, no. I'm just saying, like, I think you like each city has certain requirements that it wants. It wants food. It wants steel. It wants these certain things. And I'm guessing that as you provide that, the city itself is going to spring up, right? I think the idea is to
Yeah,
like
it
make
must.
the cities bigger by doing stuff.
It
right?
must for multiple reasons. One, because if it didn't, you wouldn't have a lot of incentive
Right.
to
Yeah.
keep building transit. Also, because again, the game is so tries to be so allegiant to the time period. Like you'd need those cities to evolve and
Yes.
become bigger in order to be appropriate to the era they're in. Like this game. When you build a train, like that train will eventually just in 30 years it'll break down,
Right.
and you'll have to replace it, or you can keep pushing it past its date. But like that's kind of how you end up modernizing.
Can you keep a train in service long enough that the citizens award you a transit museum that you can then park your train in?
Hopefully, and whereas in a SimCity game or something, that stuff just kind of like happens over time. Like things just sort of change into the more modern version. But in this game, at least on the stuff that you have control over, like you have to just, as you go through and as the years progress, just newer technology just sort of passively becomes available. And it's like, oh, now when this train breaks down, I can replace it with a newer,
With a good train.
like a more recently
Yeah.
designed train.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's crazy. And then also, of course, like you have to get to the point where you're eventually building airports and stuff.
Yeah.
And that's like way in the future for me.
I mean, so I played a lot of. I mean, I played a lot of games like this. Like I played Railroad Tycoon. I played Sid Meier's Railroads. This game shares a lot of things with those games, but I like that it feels distinct enough to where I'm gonna probably pour a ton of hours into it. Like if people have played those games and they're like, this, because I mean, just on the surface of it, even just the way that it creates a map, it's got a city here and like a resource here, and it's very like Sid Meier's Railroads, and to, I guess to a greater extent, Railroad Tycoon. They had the same thing where you've got this thing produces cows, and this city over here requires cows to create X, and then you're creating supply chains and all this stuff. But like the fact that you have to balance between all types of transport seems really interesting to me.
Cargo
Like
and
that,
passenger.
yeah. Well, not just that. Like that was in railroad.
Oh, but also just the
Railroad Tycoon
categories.
as well, but just the categories of travel. Like just right off the
Air,
bat, having to
sea,
like and just having to make like a horse and horse and carriage.
horse
Like
cart,
it's ridiculous.
Oh
like,
yeah, it's not. It's also trucks. It's also commercial.
Like shipping, freight.
And buses and just it's also road travel.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just it's good. It's like it's a very fiddly European version of all that stuff.
Are you finding that
which
it's
is
scratching
great.
the itch that you were hoping to scratch when playing MiniMetro?
Yeah, it sort of. It's
Is it
not
too brutal?
No, it's not that it's too brutal. It's not. I mean, it's like most of these games. It's not like MiniMetro where it's just too bad you lose. It's over. Bye.
MiniMetro is almost like it's an arcade game version of this.
It is. It is. I mean, this is too specific for me to. This is not a complaint about either of those two games. It's just a fantasy for me. The one I still really want is the one that is a single metropolis and is just the full transit system for that city, not the connecting supply lines to the stone quarry outside.
You just want to be
like
the MTA of a city.
Yes, I want to be the Metropolitan Transit Authority, and I like buses, metro lines, elevated rail, maybe commuter rail, like to some extent
at the most, and
at
then
the
subways.
most, and subways, that's
with no city building, right? That's because I was gonna say you're just describing like the recent SimCity,
and then you can have
but with no city building,
but with the level of fidelity that Transport Fever has, but just super super focused city scale rather than like regional scale. So you wouldn't be dealing with long haul cargo. You wouldn't be dealing. You probably wouldn't have airports at all. You could have
no freight railroad. I mean, if you had an airport, it would exist
It would
only
just
for the purpose
be
of
a
being a stop
fantasy.
for your train.
Yes, exactly. The plane would go away and come back, but it wouldn't be technically going anywhere that's simulated.
And then when Uber and Lyft move in and they totally fuck
they
up your
just ruin
plans, and you've
everything,
got to start adding dedicated lanes
yeah.
that make bicyclists mad.
Right.
right?
Yeah, that is the game that I would love. That is the one I would really, really, really love. Probably no one's going to make that game, but maybe this company that made this game will. I don't know.
I think
I could see
So
it.
like MTA Fever.
Yeah.
I mean, there are so many of these types of games.
I mean, they could
think
just call it Metro Fever.
There might be a
which is weird sounding, I guess. But sorry, what?
No, I think there is a game like this that I'm fairly certain
really?
that there is. Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised, right? There's so many crazy simulation games. That
I
exist.
feel like I've seen a screenshot of something that feels like what you're describing, but who the hell knows?
Chris, do you remember where to find that article that we both read about MiniMetro?
Oh, we did. I don't even think we
didn't
talked about that on the
it.
podcast.
It was a really good article. We should both try to find that. It was an article about MiniMetro when it came out on Steam that was written by someone who were they an academic in
No,
or they actually worked for the city?
They're a so this article in MiniMetro was written by a transit consultant. So this is an independent contractor basically who just is hired by municipalities, and I think in some cases states as well, to just consult on transit projects. So I think he used to live in San Francisco. I think now might be LA based, but has consulted for transit agencies across the all across the country.
The article is called "Learning from MiniMetro," and it's on a website called Human Transit. So you could probably find it by Googling for that.
Yeah, it's a really, really, really great article. It's not worth going into like all the details about it because it gets really nitty gritty in terms of both the game and also just its comparisons to actual transit design. But there's a total just money shot like line where he observes completely correctly, and I never would have realized this myself, that MiniMetro is not actually a game about subways, it's a game about buses. Like all of the things that that have
that was a mind-blowing note to hit in that article.
Yes, yeah. Like all the ways in which it differs from how actual metro systems work, including the ability to just like rapidly erase and
destroy and
lines.
reroute. Yeah.
Like the fact that it's actually easier to add a whole new train than a car to a train, which makes no sense in a subway system. It's much easier to add a new car to a subway than it is to add an entirely new train.
Right, but in a bus, that's turning it into an accordion bus. Like it's turning it,
It's easier to add a new bus to a line than it is to make the bus bigger. There are just a lot of things about the system that are actually much more like making a bus system, which also was interesting because he goes in and talks about why, like in a lot of cases, buses are better options than Metro and,
it's less aesthetically appealing as a graphic designer, and it's less romantic, which is why MiniMetro is what it is.
Yes,
but
for sure.
Yeah, thinking about it as being a bus manager also improved my MiniMetro game. Like reading that article, but just partly because like you have all those preconceptions of like, oh, I'm fucking it up by erasing this and whatever. Oh, nope, eat shit. Just like
Yeah, he said he talked to the developers of the game, and they said they wanted to increase the penalties for redrawing lines, and he was saying he really hopes they don't, because they've accidentally, like clearly not intentionally, like created a fairly effective simulation of a particular type of transit.
Of a way more common type of urban transit too. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I ended up actually spending like a few hours on his website just reading other articles about transit systems, and I mean, unsurprisingly, I find that stuff really interesting, which is why I want a game that's all about it. But it was really cool. It was the site is Human Transit, and it's just this guy's blog where he just posts about stuff going on in public transit around the country, and I think also the world. And the MiniMetro article was really, really, really good, and it was a great example of like how a game that actually deals with real systems that exist in the real world can have really interesting things to say about our world when it isn't when there's enough substance there. Like MiniMetro is a very like simple game that just completely doesn't even attempt to deal with a lot of the stuff real transit does.
It has enough in it to make a conversation happen.
Yes, exactly. It's really, really cool.
Yep.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Are you going to play more Transit Fever, do you think? Transport Fever?
Yeah.
Cool.
Metro Fever?
one of those. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's do some reader mail.
Reader mail?
Do some reader mail. That's what I think we should do.
Reader mail?
All right. Andrew Ray writes, video game theme parks. Hey, Thumbs. I was listening to the pod about the closed down Sega theme park in Australia and realized there is totally still a Sega theme park in Japan. I wonder if the Australia opening was an attempt to see if it had legs outside that country. Joypolis in Odaiba, Tokyo is a 4-story Sega theme park. It has large custom Jurassic Park and House of the Dead games where you're in the real front end of the Jeep. I don't know if you remember the average Jurassic Park arcade game. It's basically a light gun game on a Jeep, but in the Joypolis version, you can slam 2 big red arrows that rotate the car 180 degrees so you shoot at the dinos chasing you. It's pretty cool. The House of the Dead game is the same, but with zombies. The real attraction is Half Pipe Tokyo, which is a giant half pipe with you and your partner strapped to a giant skateboard, which then travels up and down the half pipe. You have a pedal on your feet, and the closer the skateboard is to the center, the more spins you do as you go up the other side of the half pipe. The couple who gets the most spin wins. There are like 5 other skateboards going at a time.
I don't know if that sounds good. I don't know if that sounds like a thing I want.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
A perfect score gives you a 900, I think, which if you do perfectly makes you feel very ill. I guess the genius,
I don't want it.
I guess the genius is that you either power on through or stop pressing the pedal if you feel sick. But then you're a baby with a low baby score.
I like that.
This is just designed to make Nick Breckon vomit.
Also designed to make Nick look a pro strats.
Yeah.
Yes, well, and then vomit. That's what I mean.
I like the aside in there saying a perfect score gives you 900 is a good
interesting choice.
Yeah.
Also, looking at the website, it looks like they repurposed the roller coaster to be a rhythm game roller coaster, which is cool. It also looks like VR has taken in many ways with the superbly named zero latency VR attraction, whatever that means. Also, don't forget Sonic Athletes, Sonic Brain Ranking, and Sonic Carnival for all your Sonic needs.
Sonic Carnivores.
Sonic Brain Ranking.
Zero latency VR experience. We're worried that people are going to be sick in VR.
No, they're not.
People
worried.
have been told that if it's zero latency, they don't get sick. So let's call it that. That's.
Finally, thanks for the plug on Secret Santa. This is now the biggest Idle Forum's Secret Santa yet of the 3 years I've been running it, thanks to your lovely words. Nice. You have until the 27th of this month to show your interest, which if this gets read out on the current podcast, should be a little under a week from now. Like you said, the gifts cost up to $25 excluding shipping, and you can opt for digital, physical, or both, and decide whether you have to deal with international or national shipping. That's an important note. You don't need to, if you're signing up for this, you don't need to commit to shipping internationally. You can specify when you sign up so that you don't get stuck with a bigger bill than you're happy with. But if you are happy to send to people internationally, that is a fun thing to do.
That, by the way, is in idlethumbs.net. Hit the forums link at the top, and I think that it's probably in the Idle Banter forum. That's my guess.
I think it is, yeah.
Okay. Mm. Which is our off-topic chat forum.
Mm-hmm. So the Andy here continues. Last year I got some wonderfully fluffy socks, a beautiful sci-fi book, some delicious sweets, and a beautifully goofy sheep fridge magnet from the magnificent Dibs. If this sounds like something you'd like to do, please PM me on the forums. My username is N1NJSquirrel. Sorry for the weebish username. I know it's hard to read on air. I usually say ninja with a 1 squirrel. You can search for the Idle Santa 2016 thread for more details, which, yes, is currently pinned on the Idle Banter board in the forums.
Cool.
All right. Lots of love, Andy Ray. Thank you.
He said LOL, I imagine. And you read that as lots of love.
He said lots of lovely love.
Lol.
Lol.
Good, Chris. Oh, that's Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's Dishonored.
Evan James writes, I'm going to get right to it. Lo-fi DIY as a restriction or stylist choice in game programming. Do you think this is currently manifesting itself? Indie games often have lo-fi art. Yeah, I'm not sure. So here he's going to explain it. Indie games often have lo-fi art and sound, for example, but coding interactions for the game part seem still hi-fi, requiring a good amount of knowledge to make anything basic happen. No one's picking up a computer and programming the equivalent of a beat happening record, a group of non-musicians forming a pop band and being at the forefront of the indie pop lo-fi movement in the early 80s, right? Does the programming aspect of it need decades more to get to the point of ease that would allow for that sort of expression to occur in games? Thanks for all you do, Evan, Arascani Evan on the forums.
I think that depends on what you mean. I mean, there are game jam games where movement is like you're not going to get a lo-fi Crash Bandicoot or something because that is fucking hard. Even like Super Mario Brothers 1, getting the jump physics to work right requires you to be a good programmer. But if you want like really quantized movement, like an old PC game where you just go boop, boop, boop and move across tiles, that shit is in game jams all the time. Or like interactive fiction has very simple scripting that is obviously lo-fi and comes from an earlier age of game design. But I think like the moment you start simulating gravity, I don't know if there's such a thing as lo-fi programming because game feel immediately becomes part of it. I mean, that's I don't know if that's correct or not. That's my immediate thought about that. Like,
no, I think you're right, and I think you could. I think the equivalent of that in audio would probably be the difference between like instruments being played in a sort of roughshod way versus the actual vinyl record or CD or like MP3 recording having glitches in it that cause just actually unpleasant artifacts in your ears. Right, like like that's probably closer to just having a poorly programmed game feel than having someone play guitar sloppily.
Yeah, There's, I feel like there are a number of games that exist at this point that have very simplistic and rudimentary programming, but then have a more sort of conscious, lo-fi, rough, but like kind of punky aesthetic over the top of them, or whatever other interesting lo-fi aesthetic. But I don't think that there's a. It seems like the version of a guy just jamming out on a guitar on a demo tape in programming. I don't know if that's possible to exist because it's math.
No, I don't think it is. But also, it probably doesn't exist in audio engineering, which is actually a closer comparison, probably.
Yeah.
Like if you're an audio engineer in a recording studio, or even in your home, like you're not going to intentionally make that shittier. You might intentionally not make it like better. Like you might not deaden every sound you can to the degree.
Or you might deliberately record through an old amp or onto an old tape recorder.
Right, but you're only probably going to do that in intentional ways, unlike being just an inexpert musician in which the unintentional part of it is sort of the charm. Right, like it's just the difference between the medium that's transmitting the thing and what is being transmitted. Also, another just fundamental difference is that computers are just better at making things exact. Like a straight line, like if you want your line to be drawn by a computer and not be straight, that's more work than making the line straight.
The fact that it is explicitly controlling a digital device, it's sort of like you can get really artful, interesting things by like holding a magnet near a VCR or like, you know, putting your finger down on a record. Whereas if you halfway disconnect an HDMI cable, the TV just turns off.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and so even with music, for instance, like if you have an actual mechanical piano and you slam the keys, you can hear like rattling inside the piano. Like the key will actually make a different sound depending on how hard you press it because there's mechanical stuff going on. It's actual like acoustic creation of sound. Whereas if you have a Casio keyboard, nothing you do to it is going to make the sound come out the other end, like reflect the circumstances that you were pressing it with.
All of this said, if you are a game programmer, either of beginner skill or high expertise, mega veteran, or anywhere in between, and you feel like we're
talking out of our
like
asses,
misrepresenting this, and you like, because
Yep,
our brains just don't work this way, please
Yeah.
write into questions@idlethumbs.net with your experience in what this sort of if this programming aesthetic exists or is possible to exist, or is discussed in amongst people who professionally code video games, because it's
And also, for what it's worth, like there's sort of another part of the question, which was simply about the ability to create something with less skill, and that is becoming easier and easier by the second. Like Game Maker is something like, I mean,
it's closer and closer though to something like GarageBand, and not like
Right.
Four guys in a garage with a 4-track.
Yes,
that doesn't exist.
Correct,
But like
correct.
by GarageBand, that analogy, I mean there is a huge superstructure of infrastructure built by hundreds of engineers that then allow you to plug any device into your computer and have it sound kind of good. It does the legwork of, you have a whole MIDI subsystem underneath, and you have backing loops, and you have a mixer that comes with your computer and all this other shit, as opposed to having to cobble that stuff together. The equivalent to that, I guess, is Unity or Game Maker or something, where all the low-level work of setting up
Especially
a
Game
recording
Maker.
studio is done for you in GarageBand. In Game Maker, just, man, new Game Maker is impressive as hell.
yeah, it looks really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that out yet?
I don't know if it's out or if it's announced, because I don't use Game Maker at all. But like,
I think it is.
It has what looks like incredibly robust visual scripting, and like good modern support for multi-layered scenes and stuff. Like it looks more like what you would imagine something like Game Maker would be if you've never made a video game. I think
Yeah.
it looks it.
I saw somebody like editing an animation, a 2D animation in real time. Like as the thing was animating, he was like carving away at it with like an eraser tool, and he just made like a flame effect in like 3
that
seconds.
was really
It was
awesome.
a crazy.
Yeah, that was
fucking
really
thing.
cool.
Yeah. It's a cool engine.
So, yeah. I mean, as Jake said, I would be really curious to hear more informed perspectives on this. None of us are programmers. I mean, I do some programming, but I'm not a real programmer at all. So I don't know. Like it's actually to that point, like I would not really know how to go about making something look intentionally lo-fi in a convincing, cool way. But that's definitely a thing that some programmers do with like using their skill, like using their real skills.
Right, but it's almost the equivalent of being a visual effects animator for films, and then going and replicating the effect of film grain on top of
or
a digital video
distortion or something like that. Yeah,
you have to actually be really good to make that look real.
Yes, yes, for sure.
As opposed to again, like just picking up a guitar and yelling into a microphone.
All right. Well,
who knows?
Wes McLean writes, Dear Thumbs, I started playing Dishonored 2 this weekend. I decided to approach my first playthrough non-lethally as I did with the first game. After watching the opening cutscene, I was tasked with escaping this tower through a safe room. To get that safe room, I needed the key, and to get the key, I needed to eliminate a man named Mortimer Ramsey. So I made my way to Ramsey, peeping through keyholes and choking out countless guards.
It's the last name of a Bethesda employee that I know.
I located him in a... What?
Sorry, just Ramsey. That's a girl I used to work with, so I'm sure that's a little Bethesda in-joke anyway.
Yeah. I located him in a big room talking with another guard, carefully lured him out of the room, incapacitated him, and grabbed the key off his belt. I sprinted through the level filled with sleeping guards and opened the safe room entrance. I closed the secret sliding bookcase behind me and looked at the mission goals. Apparently, I was supposed to bring Ramsey's body with me to the safe room for a successful non-lethal elimination, as we know from earlier in this podcast. So I sprinted back through the rooms of sleeping guards, slung Ramsey over my shoulder, sprinted back to the room, turned around to close the bookcase door with Ramsey still on my shoulder. As I reached out to trigger the door, it caused me to drop Ramsey. I looked down as the bookshelf was sliding closed. And to my horror, his head was resting directly in its path. With no time to react, I watched as his head exploded.
Oh my God.
I was silent for a moment. And then my character said, Traitor, that was for my father.
Oh my God.
Thanks for casting a great pod. P.S.
Jesus.
Longtime listener, first-time writer. Not worth mentioning on the show. Too late. But my sister is Anna, who booked Chris on the Future Is What podcast. I was on the official podcast of the Kill Rock Stars label, indie music label, to talk about video game music.
To talk about lo-fi programming? Oh.
Yes, exactly.
Cool.
So yeah, the podcast is called The Future of What, and that episode came out this week, I think, or last week.
Nice.
Yeah.
I wonder if that player character bark happens anytime you kill that guy, or only in weird situations where you were already on a non-lethal path and then just like secretly make him
Probably
eat
anytime
shit.
you kill him.
I know.
would guess, yeah.
But-
Yeah. It's so good though.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's really, really good.
Oh. Gross. I'm glad that I mean, it's crazy that worked. Like a lot of games that
Yeah.
wouldn't do anything. A lot of games,
It would just
his
like,
head would just clip through the door.
or it would
Yeah,
just
yeah.
stop.
Yeah. Just or it would just push him. It would physics him
Right.
into the room.
The fact that it counts as a headshot is crazy.
yeah,
I guess it
Yeah,
must,
that it
must
actually
just know
explodes the head
damage of X
specifically.
points
Yeah.
of like X HP
Yeah.
collided with head.
guess it
Make
does.
head explode.
that is really crazy.
I wonder if that's being made in the id engine, and I wonder if that's why it's got really
What
good
was the
like
first game made with?
hit detection. I think it was made in id Tech 5.
Weird.
or
I thought that I thought that would have been an
4?
Unreal game. 'Cause I
Oh,
know
maybe it was.
think
No,
it was
you
Unreal.
no, it wasn't
Arcane
Unreal.
was,
But I wonder if
Arcane
this
was
one,
historically a Source studio, I think, but I think that Dishonored is made
either
in
way.
Unreal.
Yeah.
Let's be honest here. Unreal has technology to blow up a fucking
That's
head.
true. It does. Yeah,
Come on, Nick.
that's true.
We've all seen heads explode. It can,
Oh, yeah.
It can happen.
God, Titanfall has so many like exploding heads in it. I played through. A quick note about Titanfall, which was interesting. So I finished the Titanfall 2 campaign, which like the everything after what I played, what I talked about last week is, in relatively similar vein to what came before. There weren't any sort of additional like huge introductions of new
You didn't get
mechanics
like
and stuff.
an additional dimension unlocked
No,
somehow.
no. But I was watching the credits, which I usually just do at the end of games and movies, just because I'm interested, and I noticed that the game director was Steve Fukuda, who I find really fascinating because he has been just at the forefront of like industry leading first-person shooter campaigns for like well over a decade at this point,
What's
and he's
his
just
other-
not
what's
a
his-
known name.
What's his pedigree?
He
at this
started
point?
at Infinity Ward on the first Call of Duty game
Okay.
and worked
In
there.
what role?
I believe as either a level designer or as a lead designer.
Okay, interesting.
I think even before that, he was on Medal of Honor, like the
Okay.
old Medal of Honor
Yep.
games. And then essentially, like I think became lead designer all through Modern Warfare 2. So he was in charge of the original Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare campaign, which is one of the great sort of campaigns in that style before that series, like just kind of turned into like a parody of itself, in my opinion. But the Titanfall 2 campaign was actually really refreshing in a lot of ways and a lot more fun than those Call of Duty campaigns have become. And like it was, the reason I find it interesting is because this guy, I mean, has worked on so many of these games and like
Right.
left an enormous mark, clearly left a huge mark on just AAA games, like whether or not you even
Right.
like those games
There
or
is a
not.
AAA
but he's
campaign
not
lord out
known.
there that you don't
Yeah,
know
he's just
about.
not. He's not someone who people talk about. He doesn't really. I'm sure he does interviews. I'm sure he's done interviews,
Oh, yeah.
but he's not a name.
You
in
don't
the
get
way
a feature
that,
about that guy like the way Ken Levine or Tim Schafer or someone,
Right.
even though
Right.
his name is on a ton of
Right.
of like single player linear narrative, blah 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 blah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I just
Oh,
thought that
wait.
was interesting.
I want someone to notice this and then say, "Does gaming have its Michael Bay?"
Well, that's what I was thinking when I saw this. I'm like,
Yeah.
that really is the closest comparison I can think of. Where it's like someone who really is like carved out a very specific
Yep.
kind of like blockbuster entertainment can like fairly.
But it also delivers hits, right?
Yeah, but it actually delivers hits, right? Pretty repeatedly. And yeah, I don't know. I just thought he was the first name in the credits, obviously, I think, and I had no idea, and it was like completely unsurprising to me to see, like having just known this guy's name for a long ass time, just because I try and pay attention to that stuff. But I just wanted to mention it because people usually don't. And that's really the main reason I wanted to mention that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yep. All right. Alex Kurdyukov writes, what are your thoughts on the new show Westworld on HBO?
Uh-oh.
Have you been watching it? I believe it draws a lot of parallels with MMOs and LARP. It's an interesting way of thinking about video game quest narratives and developing persistent AI robotic characters. Also, why do you think most humans are inherently afraid or distrustful of robots? I see them as the next evolutionary step, artificial beings that we can help create and nurture to help us explore our vast universe. They could truly become a reflection of humankind and our values. Are we afraid of our darker selves, which in effect limits us in building the best of humanity into AGI technologies? Regards, a robot, Alexi.
Alexa. Written by Alexa. Sent from my Alexa.
Why don't you like robots?
Yeah, why not? I think robots are the best reflection of humans.
Asking us about Westworld is probably a thing that we shouldn't get too far into because we're just going to poop on it. That's my suspicion, at least.
Well, yeah.
I started off as a huge Westworld booster in the first few
Yeah.
episodes, and as of this week, I mean, I'm a sucker who will keep watching that show, but I'm going to basically... It's effectively gone from this could be a thing that I'm really engaged in to, like, my TV trash pile that I watch when making dinner very fast. And I like, that's how I feel. Sorry, everyone who loves Westworld still, which is a lot of people.
Yeah, I was optimistic at first, and then and like each week kind of was a little bit less just like captivated, and then we were out of town one weekend, and when we came back, we just never watched the next one, and we haven't. It's been a few weeks now, and we just have.
You were replaced by robot versions of yourselves who don't need to watch
That's true.
Westworld.
Yeah, I don't know. The stuff that I find really, really interesting about Westworld is the stuff is essentially the speculation about what results in the creation of consciousness, and I think the idea that consciousness is fundamentally a function and consequence of memory, of like persistent memory, I think is a really like. I thought was a really compelling idea, and I really, really liked it. And I almost everything about else about the show, I kind of just like less and less. I find it like so goofy, and
that element of it is still, whenever it shows up in the show, is the most intriguing part of the show. But they've layered on so much, and man, I know we fucking bang on lore all the time on this podcast, but I feel like when the notion of consciousness and whether or not and how these robots are becoming conscious is turning into fallout from shitty Westworld lore, it becomes bad to me, where it's like, are they conscious because the creator of the park planted it and has an agenda and is like, bleh, like, shut up. Like, that's not what's interesting about it at all. Like, it's just...
well, and there's also all that stuff about the maids and everything, which I really just do not care about at all. Like, I don't.
I suspect
unless that's gone somewhere since I stopped watching it.
No, I mean, do we want to talk?
No, we probably should just
we
talk
end
about
up in
something.
spoiling.
I suspect that the maze is not literal and is actually an analogy, and is actually just. I suspect that the maze is a catalyst for, like, the channels of the maze, I think, is an analogy for the paths that, like, inroads for these hosts to take to become conscious. I think that's what it's supposed to be, and it's not a literal maze. But it's treated like a fucking J.J. Abrams mystery box like, it's treated like the hatch in Lost, in the first season of Lost, where, like, all these every single character on the show now wants the same thing. Like, it's collapsing in on itself in a way that either is going to just land in a monotonous way, or is going to try to pull the rug out from under everyone at the end of this first season and say, what you thought you were watching, you weren't watching, which is also, in my opinion, not strong storytelling. Yeah. So it's tough. Like,
yeah. But so that's a bummer.
Yeah.
I do really like the show's just fundamental, like, ideas about what consciousness is. And I kind of wish it were less encumbered by all of the expectations of what modern prestige dramatic television is supposed to have in it, because
Game of Thrones is definitely having an effect on the development of the show pretty hard, I think, especially particularly when we're talking about lore and like building up this sort of like,
and just shit like Criminal Minds, whatever. Every TV show looks the same now. Like the cut to pristine science world that just could easily also be a set from CSI. Like, I don't know. I mean, I'm becoming less enamored with the sort of interesting video game design stuff too, which I actually really did like in the first few episodes.
Me too. Yeah.
When they had, like, the narrative designer and the QA team and the, like, view you get into some of the programming of how the language processing of the characters work. All that stuff is interesting to me, except for the fact that they don't, because the show seems so fixated on withholding everything so that they can then twist your mind in knots with their big reveals. They're unwilling to explain the rules of anything. Which makes it pointless as a study of game design or as a study of world design or of theme park creation or anything, because they won't actually tell you how any of it works in any of the behind the scenes scenes, which like that's all those people would be fixated on.
Yeah.
That's it, and they keep it from you, I think, because they're planning on it not being what you think it is.
Yeah.
So like, it feels like it just pays lip service to all that stuff in the long term. It's very frustrating. Also, how many seasons can this show go on and still be interesting on any of the axes that it was interesting in the first few episodes?
Right.
Yeah.
They've renewed it for a second season, and I imagine they
think,
want it to
don't
be.
they say it's 5?
I'm sure that's the length that every like big American TV show wants to be now, right? You want to tell a story in 5 season-long acts.
Okay.
I mean, right? I don't know. And then if you're as popular as Lost, you'll split the final season into 2 half-length seasons. Like Mad Men did that as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Got a Harry
Sopranos.
Potter.
Sopranos.
We're in the golden age of television, wherein we treat it the same way as we treat Harry Potter movies.
Yeah.
What?
Cynical
Sorry.
takes.
Sorry.
No.
I think Chris and I are both on an old man trajectory about the golden age of TV right now. Where like
I don't think I was totally on board the golden age of TV train for a while, and now I kind of think it's hype. It's mainly hype.
well.
Yeah.
The way that you can make like the cinematography and editing style of like true like high watermark prestige shows is now affordable for $0. Like
Right.
Like network
Super color graded.
network procedurals look the same as Mad Men. I mean, not. It's Mad Men is an interesting example.
Mad Men's actually a bad example because Mad Men has actually like really, really, really coherent set design and production
I also
design.
feel like when people started aping the look of the first half of Mad Men, they just told everyone to eat shit and changed their look at season 5 to be way more filmic and like way more like when Mad Men.
Yeah.
Like there's other TV shows that just look like the first couple seasons of Mad Men as far as the color palette and the architecture and stuff. But when they started deliberately introducing like rear projection and like really grainy, like they started like diving way more into their own strange take on a period aesthetic that I don't think anyone else has touched. But like I don't know, it's I find it frustrating at this point. Like I'm sure there are still TV shows that are good out there, but we're in a sea of every TV show that's the same. And the obvious example of that is that every TV show's opening credits are the same.
Yes.
Like there's just a template that you're ripping on right now.
Well, that company, I looked that company up
there's a few.
last week. There are a couple, but man, that company has done a lot of stuff that you wouldn't realize.
Macro lens shot of something being built or something being examined or whatever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That like the creative director of that company had a list of credits that was like, oh my god, there's a reason why all this shit feels the same.
You could make a really, really, really boring supercut of every TV show introduction insert shot into like a 3-hour-long TV introduction that you wouldn't know was from different shows. We're like, oh, I guess this involves the Queen of England and the San Francisco subway system and you know whatever.
It's a video game.
The Assassin's Creed movie will actually just.
Oh man, did you guys see the Assassin's Creed movie poster that has like the assassin, but then all those other people like superimposed onto him, and
the assassin is also deploying small assassins leaping off of him,
like
the Cloverfield monster or something. Yeah, it's a
so
real
bad
poster.
And stupid.
Also, when I saw
that, all I could imagine was like. Was other people in the world as the assassin is sneaking around, like someone else in the world being like, "Wait a second, that's just 4 guys in a suit."
It really looks like that. It really looks like the assassin walks up to and says, "1 ticket, please," and then like 4 other heads pop out of the coat. Are like, "Is they buying it?" And then they disappear back inside. Except that it's also Anyway, that poster is ridiculous.
Yeah.
This is a good reader mail, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I forgot we're doing reader mail.
It doesn't matter.
I can't find this stupid poster.
Don't worry about it, Nick.
It's fine.
Zach Chin writes, "I work at the weird store on Bay and Mission in Santa Cruz." Did we read this yet? No.
We read it
works there.
ourselves.
Hey Thumbs, I also went to UCSC and I am a Santa Cruz local. The weird grocery stores you guys have been talking about was indeed flipped into a pretty successful restaurant and bar called Burger. It's a good name.
Nice.
I'm a bartender there, and the next time any of the Thumbs or Campo Cruz in town, please come on in for a free drink. Thanks for all the pods, Zach in Santa Cruz.
Oh, I found, in regards to that weird store, I found someone's old blog from 2005. Let me see if I can find it. Because that's the store that, like, looked like its contents were 2 or 3 decades out of date and had just a mysterious old man. I don't know if I'm gonna find it.
Yeah, the vitamins, the Pac-Man vitamins.
That had Pac-Man vitamins and Squeeze-Its that were just clearly from the 80s, and canned food that looked like it was from the early 80s. It just looked like everything was decades out of date. Anyway, I found a blog post from May 1st, 2006, and it's a blog called Occasionally Santa Cruz. Bay Mission Market gone? The Bay Mission Market at the corner of Bay and Mission, of course, has long been a Santa Cruz fixture, albeit a funky one. I remember a newspaper article about it when I was a student in the late 70s. The reporter had found products on their shelves from the early 60s and before containing cyclamates, which had been banned 15 to 20 years earlier. I've wondered how it stayed in business for so long. The past few years, it seems to mostly subsist on alcohol sales from the look of the ads that were in the window. Walking by, I saw this sign in the window, and there's a picture of a for sale sign.
Yeah.
That was 2006?
2006.
So
Someone from the
so
70s.
strange.
Someone from the 70s was there. They had 20-year out-of-date
So that was
products
only
then.
a couple years after you left that school. Or-
Yes, I was
yeah.
there when Bay Mission closed. I think I mentioned that.
Okay,
And
okay.
I was still working in Santa Cruz County when they had the for sale sign up, but I left before it turned into whatever the restaurant is called. But, oh man, finding that blog from someone who was there in the city 30, 40 years prior, and they then had things from the 50s.
Right.
Yeah.
What in the world?
How does that even work?
There's like a Twilight Zone
when did they
episode about
cycle-
this.
Yeah,
store.
how do they
get
just
the
change
new-
the store
how
up
do
and then?
when do they change?
Yeah.
Maybe once every 15 years
They
that store
restock?
has new stuff in it.
But well, no, because then it would be current for a little while. Probably
Right,
they
exactly.
restock it in the back
It
room.
would be for a little while.
Let
but
them
not for long.
age. Let everything age for 20 years and then bring it out.
They have a shadow copy of the store in the back that they let the
That
dust
they
and sort
flips
of
back and forth between which one's open.
They slowly, like we got to switch out this shelf and put some 60s stuff out there, and we'll throw the 40s stuff away finally, and we'll fill it full of late 70s stuff that we'll bring out in 25 years or whatever. Anyway, the fact that store has a history that goes back that far really makes it feel like it's something out of the Twilight Zone or like a fixture in the town of Buffy the Vampire Slayer or something, or like
it's like a Stephen King novel or something where it's like, that
weird
store.
It is very Stephen King, where there's a store
that place has a memory.
There's like a bubble, and it's just always 20 years behind. Like the windows of that store refract light slowly, and you can, when you're inside, you look out and see old cars driving by.
Yep.
Whatever.
Yep.
Anyway. Oops. Oh no.
La la la.
Sorry.
What was that, Chris?
Reader
mail
Someone
theme.
sent a reader mail, but it was a YouTube video, which is not useful for that. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know. That might be that. We should mention that the Idle Thumbs Wizard Jam 4 is, I think, days away at this point, right? We're right up on that.
It's very soon.
Yeah. So the Idle Thumbs Wizard Jam is now biannual. Is biannual or biennial? Which is the one where it's twice a year?
I don't know.
Biannual.
Biannual?
Yeah.
So biennial is every 2 years?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it semi-annual?
Oh, God. What a disaster.
It's
anyway,
November 19th to December 4th.
Yes. So this is a game jam that is entirely organized by the Idle forums, and the only real rule is that your game must be titled after the title of an episode on the Idle Thumbs network. Not just our show, but any of the shows hosted at idlethumbs.net. And there are sort of optional modifiers that the forums kind of put together to allow people to challenge themselves additionally or get some more ideas. But really all it is 2 weeks spent making a game inspired by an Idle Thumbs episode title. And it's a really fun, like, welcoming community. People help each other out. People contribute to each other's games. And then hopefully, if we can do it this time, which we failed to do, we will stream those games live.
We streamed all the ones from the last jam.
We did.
We just only uploaded half of the videos because of weird Twitch
because
errors.
we had weird issues.
The sentiment seems to be, and we've been told that if you are new to game dev, or if you've always wanted to do a game jam but have not before, the Idle or the Wizard Jam is a particularly welcoming one, and I think that is true. The community seems to be very good.
Yes.
So if you want a non-competitive 2-week-long excuse to make a dumb, goofy video game or an incredibly serious and personal game, whatever you want, these guys would be more than welcome, or more than happy to welcome you into that crew.
Yeah. If you go to idlethumbs.net, go to the forums, we have a whole game development sub-forum.
There's a Wizard Jam forum in there right at the top.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, Wizard Jam 4. What is it? When does it start? I know you just said it and I already forget.
It is Saturday, November 19th through Sunday, December 4th. The thread has actual like official start and end times in time zone time. So
that starts this weekend.
Yep.
So still time.
Make video games. Do it.
All right. Well, thanks for listening or watching this episode of Idle Thumbs. Again, this episode was streamed live during recording to Twitch at twitch.tv/idlethumbs. You can subscribe to our Twitch channel and get a bunch of chat emotes that were designed just for us by John Christensen.
They started off as Wizard Jam characters from a game in which we were an RPG party.
Yeah, a while ago at this point. And if you have Amazon Prime, you can every month you get a non-auto renewing free Twitch subscription through your Prime subscription that you can apply to any Twitch channel. So if you want a free way to subscribe to us and get those emotes and just help out the show, you can toss us your Amazon Prime Twitch subscription. You link your Prime account to your Twitch account, and it's really easy.
It gives you the ability to spam any Twitch chat you're in with a crying cartoon of Nick Breckon's face. And if that's not worth the $0 it costs you, I don't know what is.
Mm-hmm. You can also spend real money with a Twitch subscription. You're up to you. Nick Breckon's face is worth it either way. You can also send us email at questions@idlethumbs.net, and we'll read it on this podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/idlethumbs, on Facebook at facebook.com/idlethumbs. You can find us on iTunes and Stitcher and some other places as well.
The Google Play Podcast Store.
We're on the Google Play Podcast Store as well.
It's probably not a store.
It's whatever it is. If you like this show, please tell a friend. That is the best way we have to spread the word. And thanks for listening.
Thanks.
We'll talk to you all next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Except for the people on Twitch who are still here.
Oh, yeah.
Barf.
Oh, man.
Hello, Twitch. Hello.
You did it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, good. Twitch chat is just crying Nick Breckon faces now.
Of course they are.
All right. Well, I guess that's it. Thanks, everyone, for watching this stream.
Yeah.